Okay, tonight is 2 Nephi chapter 16.
In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke.
The next couple chapters, these are chapters that are part prophecy, but also part what was actually happening to Isaiah at the time. There was a point in the history of Israel where the people of Israel actually divided. Right, there was like a north kingdom and a south kingdom, and basically 10 of the tribes went one way, and the others stayed in Jerusalem. So Jerusalem was mostly the Judah people, okay, or the Jews as we would call them, and as well as some of Joseph, as we know, since Lehi and his family came from there. So that was really all that was left in Jerusalem by the time the Book of Mormon started. So it was probably about 100 or so years before that they had divided, and so 10 of the tribes went to a different location in Israel, all right, but not in Jerusalem proper. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to the land of Judah, okay, with the capital of that would be Jerusalem. Okay, this is where Isaiah lived at the time that he's writing this, and the king of Judah at that time was named Uzziah. All right, so we're gonna write just so we can keep track of who's who here. Okay. All right, so the king Uzziah is the king of Jerusalem at this time, or of Judah. I'm sorry. Now it says that Isaiah saw this happening, what he described, right? He says he saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, and around the throne was basically heavenly beings, known as the seraphim in particular. It's a type of angel, yeah. It's one that's got 6 wings, right, in particular, and so as you can see there, it says it has 6 wings. Now your standard angel doesn't necessarily have wings. Okay, we're aware of that, but the seraphim does have wings. So it has 6 wings, and it says with 2 who covered his face, 2 who covered his feet, and 2 he did fly. All right, so this is multi-purpose wings, as you can see. Right, and so this is what Isaiah is witnessing, and recognizing that in heaven there could be different types of beings, and so this was what he saw. And so he saw the Lord, he saw the seraphim, and basically they were in the act of recognizing God, holy, 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 the Lord of hosts. Now, does that sound familiar at all? Those words. Okay, it's in particular Psalm number 425, I believe it is in our hymn book. It's titled "Holy, Holy, Holy, Lord God Almighty." All right, and in that psalm, one of the verses even mentions the seraphim. The second one mentions the cherubim and seraphim falling down before thee. All right, so it's 425 is always one that's you're recognizing God for who it is, for how holy and mighty God is, and so it evokes a memory of this particular vision where Isaiah was seeing exactly that. Right? He was seeing what it would be like to be in heaven with all the beings surrounding the throne of God. So he's witnessing this, and now it means really something is happening. It's going to happen to him as he's been allowed to see this, and so this is what's being related in this particular chapter. This is probably one of the more, I'll say, popular chapters in Isaiah. This is one where it's like his own personal calling as a prophet and so forth. So this was how it began, with seeing this vision of the throne of God.
Then said I, Woe is unto me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphim unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this has touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged.
Again, this is him, still by the throne of God. He says, I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. In this case, it just means that he was not really where he needed to be. He was recognizing he had sin in his life, And I guess when you're before the throne of God, it's hard to hold that in, because you're in such a place that you say, wow, none of us really belongs there. So you recognize, hey, I'm a sinful person. I don't belong here. So this is, I think, what was happening. So I'm a man of unclean lips, and guess what? Where I come from, everybody's got the same thing going on. Nobody from there is worthy to be here, which is true because this is before Christ. So really, nobody was yet, if you will, eligible for the kingdom of heaven at that point. Right? So, but yet God had a mission for Isaiah. So now, as you see what happens, it says, then flew one of the seraphim out to me, having a live coal in his hand, right, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar, and he put it on his mouth. Said, okay, well, you got unclean lips. Psst. Okay, you're good to go now, right? And, so it says that what does it say? It says that thy iniquity is taken away and thy sin purged. So you can see, I mean, it wasn't that the lips was more just representative of the sin of the whole body, But this is what was being used as the example. So with the live coal, and they burned it away, right? And maybe a baptism of fire, if you will. That this is what was done to purge him of sin. This that really is almost the equivalent of being baptized, right? That's really what's happening here. And so at that point, he's ready to go as a prophet and servant of God. And number 205, okay, which is entitled "Speak, My Lord." The second verse begins, when the coal of fire touched the prophet, making him as pure can be. Okay, when the voice of God said, who'll go for us? Then he answered, here I am, send me. Okay, so needless to say that it's coming right from here. Right? That's from this chapter, or at least the Isaiah chapter.
Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, here I am, send me. And he said, go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but they understood not, and see ye indeed, but they perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and be converted and be healed.
Right, first of all, 8, you can kind of link it in with the other ones that we just read. And in fact, the verse that I read from the hymn included this last part, right, where it says, who shall I send, and here I am, send me. Okay, and this is what God likes to hear, right? That if God is saying, I need somebody to do something, and who shall I send, right? Perhaps the human response might be, well, let's think about it, or I'll look around for somebody for you, right? But the response he wants to hear is, send me, right? Here I am, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do whatever it is you want me to do as a servant of God. So as Isaiah was called to be a prophet and a servant of God, so when it says the voice of the Lord said, who am I going to send? I'm here, I'm ready, send me, and I'll do it for you. So that's what God likes to hear. So having said that, so now he gets his little mission here, right? And now as you read the words, I mean, it's almost backwards in its way, right? It says, go tell them to hear, but they understood not, and see, but they perceived not. Make the heart of the people fat, make their ears heavy, shut their eyes, right? Lest they see with their eyes and hear with their ears, understand with their heart, and be converted and be healed. Like we don't want that to happen. What I would compare it to is, when Jesus was with the people, with his disciples and so forth, and he was going to give them information pertaining to the kingdom of God. What method did he use to do that? Parable, okay? And remember they asked him at one point, why do you speak in parables? And remember what he said? His instruction or his sharing information was for those who were going to be spiritually minded, for those who wanted to look at things in a spiritual way and accept it as a spiritual message. Then they could figure out the meaning. Somebody who's going to apply literal sense to these stories would get all confused. I mean, what's this about? A guy throwing seeds out on the sidewalk and the birds come and eat them, so what, right? And those kind of stories that he would tell, but yet when you use a spiritual eye towards it, then you understand the meaning. So I think what he's saying here is he's instructing Isaiah to speak in a way that only those who were of a spiritual mind would understand, right? That not that the average person who has no interest in God is going to somehow get this information and do something with it, right? And if you read a lot of Isaiah, which we've been doing, I I'd say he's doing a pretty good job, right? Because it's not that easy to understand at all, right? And in some cases, perhaps it might have been easier at that time if you were spiritually minded and living in that age to understand. But of course, we're having a hard time with it even today, right? Trying to figure out some of what it says. So yeah, I think his message is pretty well encoded, if you ask me.
Then said I, Lord, how long? And he said, until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And the Lord had removed men far away, for there shall be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. But yet there shall be a tenth, and they shall return, and shall be eaten as a teil tree, and as an oak whose substance is in them, when they can cast their leaves, so the holy seed shall be the substance thereof.
Okay, as he's hearing this instruction, he says, well, he's asking a question, well, Lord, how long is this going to go on like this? Right? I mean, I'm going to share this information, people aren't going to understand it. I mean, what's going to happen? Well, until such time as there's a destruction that's going to happen, because there's going to be war in these cities and these nations, and there's going to be people killed off, and there's going to be punishments exacted and so forth. So until all this happens, this is the mode that we're going to be in. And if you remember again what we're talking about, right? So we're talking about here, this is where Isaiah lived in the land of Judah. And so it was really basically the one tribe there, which was Judah and some of Joseph. So that's all that was there. So when he was hearing how this was going to happen and how there's going to be a lot of destruction, I think that in verse 13, which is kind of maybe the important part of including this, it says, "But a tenth will return." So even though the people will be carried away captive into Babylon, and the country of Assyria is going to come in and do war here, but yet at least a tenth will remain. They're not going to be totally wiped out, right? That the Jews will not be totally destroyed. There will be some remnant left. And now let me ask you a question. Why was it necessary that there would be some left? Okay, because Christ would come through that lineage, so that lineage had to be preserved also. Okay, so, and I think really in its way that's part of why this chapter is included, because again, remember that these chapters, we're not studying Isaiah necessarily. I mean, we are, but we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be studying like a Nephi, right? So these chapters were put here for a reason, right? That Nephi chose to include them in his own writing, because in this case, they're giving prophecies of the future of their descendants, and it looks very bleak, but at the end it says, but a remnant will remain and will be used for good purposes. So in other words, yes, we're going to have some hard times ahead of us, but in the end, it's a happy ending, right? So I think that's how he chose these different chapters, is ones that would show what's going to happen in the future and how things will work out for the best in the end.